Okay, here's a question for you. What do an ancient lightning-wielding spirit, one that legends say hunted killer whales, and a squadron of super advanced F-16 fighter jets have in common? Sounds kind of like a riddle, doesn't it? But the answer, well, it hints at something really fascinating, how these powerful old legends can sort of echo through amazing modern engineering. Welcome back, everyone, to the Deep Dive. I'm genuinely excited you're joining us again as we get into another story. Our mission today, to really unpack the layers behind one iconic name, Thunderbird. We're going to trace its story, from its really rich Native American mythological roots all the way to how it shows up today with the U.S. Air Force's elite aerial demonstration team.
Exactly. And to guide us through this, we've gathered quite a mix of sources. We've got these really detailed articles about the Air Force Thunderbirds, how they transform the jets, the performances themselves. But we've also dived deep into the mythological side, scholarly works on the Thunderbird spirit across different indigenous cultures, and even how it's shown in art, both ancient and, more modern. It's really interesting blend, isn't it? High-tech aviation meets ancient folklore.
It absolutely promises to be quite the journey. Before we really dive in, though, just a quick reminder. If you enjoy what we do here, if you find these connections interesting, please do take a moment to comment on this deep dive. Give us a like, maybe share it with someone you think would find it cool, and definitely hit that bell icon. It really helps the channel grow. And honestly, your support helps us keep bringing these kinds of stories to light for you. Okay, so let's get into it. When most people hear Thunderbirds today, I think their mind jumps straight to the U.S. Air Force team, right?
Yeah, almost certainly.
They're often called America's ambassadors in blue. They fly, 6 F-16 Fighting Falcons.
That's right, 6 General Dynamics F-16s.
And the air shows they put on are just, well, breathtaking.
They really are. And what's striking about those jets isn't just how they look in the air, but their raw capability. The F-16, it's a premier multi-role fighter jet. I mean, we're talking about a machine. Its engine generates enough thrust to lift like a fully loaded semi-truck straight up off the ground.
Wow. Seriously?
Seriously. It can hit speeds over Mach 2, twice the speed of sound, way up high. It can soar above 50,000 feet. That's much higher than commercial jets fly. And it's a big aircraft, too, nearly 50 feet long, wingspan over 32 feet. It's a serious piece of engineering. And back in '98, the cost was around $14.6 million per jet.
That's incredible power. But what really fascinates me is the transformation. You take this combat-ready F-16, a real workhorse built for battle, and turn it into this precision instrument for display. It sounds like a massive undertaking. Is it as complex as it sounds?
Oh, it's incredibly complex. And the way they do it has actually changed quite a bit over the years. Historically, these conversions, all the detailed work, it was done at big maintenance depots, like Hill Air Force Base in Utah was a main one.
Okay.
But recently, there's been this really strategic shift. The Thunderbirds team itself, they decided to bring this process in-house, right there at Nellis Air Force Base in Nevada. It was a pretty groundbreaking move led by a Captain Mike Bell. And the thinking was, partly, it was an opportunity to give back to combat units.
How so?
By doing it themselves, they freed up those really scarce spots at the main depots, which are always in high demand for operational aircraft.
Oh, okay, that makes sense. So it helps the wider Air Force.
Exactly. And just as importantly, they said it led to so much institutional knowledge being gained right there within their own maintenance teams. That's huge.
Right, building that expertise internally. So what does the conversion actually involve? Like, what do they do to the jet?
Well, it's pretty detailed. First off, the obvious thing, the paint job. The F-16 gets completely repainted in that iconic, glossy red, white, and blue polyurethane livery. Then they actually remove the 20-millimeter Gatling gun.
The actual gun?
Yep, the gun and its ammunition drum. That takes out a fair bit of weight, and in its place, they install a smoke oil drum. And then there's this whole complex plumbing system they have to put in. That's what creates the colored smoke trails you see.
Ah, the smoke system. I always wondered how that worked.
Yeah, and installing the controls for that in the cockpit. That's a big job. It involves Nellis electricians and avionics experts really getting deep into the jet's wiring. They even had to custom make some parts. Like there's this heavy metal bracket they needed, partly for weight and balance, but also to maintain pressure in the smoke system. They actually milled it from a solid block of metal using a CNC machine, one of those computer-controlled cutting tools right there at the Nellis Metal Shop.
Wow. That's serious custom work.
It really is.
Yeah.
And the efficiency gain was impressive. Doing it in-house, the Nellis team finished the conversion in just 212 days.
212 days? How does that compare?
Well, the typical time of the depot was around 335 days. So a huge improvement, especially considering it was their first time doing the whole thing themselves.
Yeah, that's remarkable. It really speaks to their skill. And you mentioned the human element, too, like that crew chief, Staff Swak Jamie Smith, who actually moved with his jet.
Yeah, that's a great anecdote, isn't it? He was with jet number 470 at the weapons school, and when it was selected for the Thunderbirds, he moved with it to become its crew chief on the team.
What does that tell you?
It just speaks volumes, I think, about the dedication, the almost personal bond these maintainers form with their aircraft.
Mm.
For someone like Straight Smith, that jet isn't just metal and wires. It's something they know intimately, every single part, and they feel responsible for it. Moving with it shows real ownership, real pride. Their work, that meticulous behind-the-scenes effort, it's just as vital as the pilot's skill up front. Without them, those incredible displays just couldn't happen.
Absolutely. And when you see them fly, it really is like a symphony, isn't it? Steel and skill, that precision is just unreal. I read about their tiered show system, high, low, flat shows depending on the clouds.
That's right. Cloud deck height dictates which routine they can safely perform.
And they fly low, like 150 feet, at 400 miles per hour.
Around 400 to 425 knots, yeah, which is close to 400 miles per hour, a bit over. Flying that low, that fast, pilots talk about the sensation of buildings just whipping by. It must be totally unique.
I can only imagine. Now, people often compare them to the Navy's Blue Angels, right? They fly F-18s.
They do. And both teams share that same core mission. Recruit, retain, inspire, representing their respective services.
Are there differences in how they fly, besides the aircraft type?
There are some subtle differences people point out. Sometimes the Blue Angels are noted for having slightly tighter formations in certain maneuvers, but the Thunderbird's F-16s generally have a higher thrust-to-weight ratio, basically more engine power for their weight. So they tend to be faster, which can show in different aspects of their performance. So, both teams are incredible, just showcasing slightly different capabilities and styles.
But back to those tight formations, you mentioned how close they get, like the Diamond Pass and Review. How close are we talking?
We're talking sometimes as close as 18 inches apart.
18 inches at nearly 400 miles an hour.
Yep. They even have a phrase for it, swapping paint. It's that close.
The level of trust and precision required is almost unbelievable. How do they even train for that?
It's intense, relentless practice, hundreds of hours every year. It's not just stick and rudder skills, it's communication, absolute faith in your wingmen developing muscle memory that's almost subconscious. Every single maneuver is choreographed down to the tiniest fraction of a second. It's built on just profound confidence in each other.
The mental focus must be immense.
Absolutely. That mental strength, especially knowing the risks involved, might be even more crucial than the raw flying skill. They visualize everything, rehearse it mentally, over and over. Which brings us, naturally, to the risk factor. It's impossible to ignore.
Right. It looks effortless, but it's inherently dangerous.
It is. And the history reflects that, sadly. The Blue Angels have lost 27 pilots over their history, the Thunderbirds 36.
That's a sobering number.
It is. And it's why safety is paramount. There's a strict non-negotiable rule. Never fly directly over the crowd. That rule became even more ingrained after tragic incidents like the Ramstein airshow disaster back in '88, though that involved a different team.
Right. You have to manage that risk constantly.
Exactly. And while technology helps, the F-16 has advanced flight control computers that make it incredibly stable, almost like it's flying on rails, as pilots say, compensating for tiny, unwanted movements.
Yeah.
It still comes down to an incredible amount of human skill, judgment, and frankly, nerve. It's pushing the envelope, but doing it with extreme discipline.
Okay, so we've got this modern marvel, the Air Force Thunderbirds, these incredible jets, these highly skilled pilots. But the name, Thunderbird, you mentioned it wasn't just picked randomly. It was chosen deliberately because of the strong Native American culture in the southwestern United States where the team started.
That's right, and that name carries so much weight, so much history.
So let's shift gears. Let's dive into that mythological Thunderbird. What is it in those traditions?
Well, the mythological Thunderbird is this hugely significant figure across many, many North American indigenous cultures. It's generally described as this powerful bird-like spirit, a supernatural being representing immense power and strength.
Okay, power and strength.
And its presence is often linked to storms. In some traditions, like Algonquian, it's said to create thunder just by flapping its enormous wings, and lightning that comes from flashing its eyes. That's a belief found among Algonquian and Iroquois peoples, too.
Wow, so it literally embodies the storm.
Exactly. It's often depicted as a massive bird of prey, sometimes even a hybrid, part human, part bird. And almost universally, it's seen as a guardian figure, a protector. It controls the upper world,
And it's found across North America.
pretty much everywhere. Pacific Northwest coast, the American Southwest, the East Coast, Great Lakes, Great Plains. Its stories and imagery are incredibly widespread. We even find archaeological evidence, like petroglyphs, rock carvings near Twin Bluffs, Wisconsin. Some depictions there go back maybe 4,000 years, with others dated between 250 BCE and 1500 CE. It's an ancient, enduring figure.
That's incredible longevity. Do the stories differ much between tribes?
Oh yeah, there's a rich diversity in the legends. For the Algonquian peoples, for instance, the Thunderbird is the master of the upper world. It's often shown in this distinctive X shape, wings out flat, head forward. And its main role is battling creatures from the underworld, like the underwater panther or the great horned serpent, using its lightning bolts as weapons.
A cosmic battle, essentially.
Very much. Then you have the Ojibwe, who say the Thunderbirds were actually created by their cultural hero, Nanaboso, specifically to fight off dangerous underwater spirits. They also believe Thunderbirds could punish humans who broke important moral rules. And interestingly, they were thought to migrate seasonally, just like real birds.
That's fascinating. What about other groups?
The Menominee, their tradition says Thunderbirds live on this great mountain that floats in the western sky. They control rain and hail. They're enemies of the horned snakes, the Mississippinubic, and act as messengers of the great sun. For the Ho-Chunk, seeing a Thunderbird in a vision, especially during a solitary fast, was incredibly powerful. It could mean you were destined to become a war chief.
Wow, a sign of leadership.
Definitely. And the Arikara have this wonderful story about a boy who actually befriends both the Thunderbirds and a giant two-headed serpent, kind of navigating between these immense powers.
These stories are so rich. And the artwork must reflect that too. You mentioned X shapes, but also more detailed images.
Exactly. The art varies quite a bit. You see those stylized, almost abstract X shapes, but also incredibly intricate depictions with details like a huge curving beak and prominent ears or horns. It clearly inspired a lot of artistic expression.
Where is the Thunderbird symbolism perhaps strongest or most detailed?
I'd say the Pacific Northwest coast traditions are particularly striking. The Thunderbird is one of the most dominant icons in the art and legends of the native peoples there. According to their legends, it lives high in the mountains. For the Quileute tribe, its home is Mount Olympus. For the Coast Salish, it's Black Tusk Peak, these imposing, sky-reaching mountains.
Leaving homes for such a powerful being.
Right. And in these traditions, again, thunder comes from its wing beats. But they add another detail. They say it rolls ice out of its cave, and the chunks breaking off and rumbling down the slopes. That's another source of thunderous noise.
That's a great image.
Isn't it? And the Kwakwaka'waka'am people have a specific story about making a pact, a deal, with the Thunderbird during a time of famine. They needed help, and the Thunderbird provided. And that's why its image is so central on their totem poles, huge outstretched wings, symbolizing that alliance and protection.
You get a real sense of its immense scale from these stories.
Absolutely. They describe its wingspan as being twice as long as a native Indian war canoe. I mean, just try to picture that.
Huge. And did it have specific weapons in these legends?
It did. Besides lightning from its eyes, it wielded the lightning snakes.
Well, lightning snakes.
Yeah, sometimes depicted almost like creatures themselves, with wolf or dog-like heads and serpent tongues. They were even called Thunderbird's dogs. It would either throw these snakes like spears or generate them just by blinking its fiery eyes.
Incredible imagery. And it hunted things. You mentioned killer whales at the start.
Yes, that's a really key element in the Pacific Northwest. Its primary prey was the orca, the killer whale. The legends tell of these epic battles, the Thunderbirds swooping down, grabbing a killer whale, carrying it off to the mountains to eat. These struggles were said to be so immense, so violent, they uprooted entire trees. Some legends even use this to explain why certain areas are treeless prairies, the aftermath of a Thunderbird-orca battle.
Wow, so that's why you often see them depicted together in the art.
Exactly. The Thunderbird and the killer whale, often locked in combat or shown together, it symbolizes that cosmic balance, the power struggle between the sky and the sea. And just as one more example, the Squamish Nation today uses the Thunderbird as their official symbol. For them, it represents strength as well as change. Their depiction has 3 tail feathers for past, present, and future, and sometimes shows a lizard face in its talons, symbolizing spiritual protection.
So across all these variations, the core symbolism seems consistent. Immense power, strength, nobility, often protection or transformation. It's a really potent symbol.
Definitely. An enduring spirit that clearly resonated deeply across cultures and time.
Which brings us right back to where we started, really. Bridging these two worlds. How does this name Thunderbird, steeped in all that ancient myth and power, so perfectly capture both that spirit and the modern F-16 demonstration team? What's the shared essence?
That's the fascinating connection, isn't it? I think the name just instantly evokes that shared feeling of, well, immense power, definitely. Breathtaking strength, a sense of awe. Both the mythical creature and the F-16 squadron absolutely embody those things. But maybe it goes a bit deeper.
How so?
Well, mythological Thunderbird wasn't just raw power. It was often a protector, right? A guardian maintaining order in the upper world, battling chaos with lightning, ensuring balance.
Right, the protector aspect.
And the U.S. Air Force Thunderbirds, while they're a demonstration team, they represent the peak of skill, precision, professionalism. And underlying that is the protective might of the Air Force itself, of our men.
Ah, I see that connection. Precision and protection.
Yeah. So choosing that name, it wasn't just picking something that sounded cool or powerful, though it does.
Mm.
It feels like tapping into this really deep, almost primal cultural understanding of what Thunderbird signifies. A majestic, formidable force that commands the skies, capable of shaping its environment, whether that's creating storms or executing flawless aerial maneuvers. It forms this bridge, connecting ancient reverence with modern skill and, perhaps, a sense of security.
It gives the team an instant weight, an identity that resonates beyond just the technical specs of the jet.
Exactly. It draws on centuries of this shared human concept of power coming from the sky. It gives them gravity.
It really is remarkable how a name with such deep roots can just transcend time and technology like that. It gives something totally new, like this F-16 squadron, such a powerful identity. It's like inheriting a legacy.
It is. And, it's not just the Air Force team. If you think about it, the name Thunderbird has had this broad appeal for decades, right? It pops up in other places as a symbol of power and impact. The classic Ford Thunderbird car, known for style and power.
Oh yeah, the car.
Right, or that adventurous 1960s TV show, Thunderbirds. Even sports teams use the name.
That's true. It just seems to universally signal something impressive, something forceful.
Exactly. It just shows how potent and widely understood that core concept of the Thunderbird remains a force to be reckoned with, whether it's in ancient myths, on the highway, or roaring across the sky in an air show.
What an amazing journey we've taken today. Really, from those ancient skies filled with lightning spirits all the way to modern aerobatics and F-16s. We've peeled back the layers on this one powerful name, Thunderbird, and seen how it truly bridges these different worlds. So here's a final thought for you to maybe mull over. When you next see an F-16, maybe at an air show, roaring across the sky, or maybe when you encounter an ancient symbol, perhaps in a museum or a book, just pause for a second and consider how deeply history and legend can weave themselves into the fabric of today's innovations. What other powerful names or symbols are out there all around us that might hold these kinds of unexpected stories, just waiting for their own deep dive? Thank you so much for joining us on this exploration. It's been fascinating. If you enjoyed uncovering these connections with us, please, again, remember to comment, give us that like, share it with your friends, and hit the bell icon. It really does help us keep these deep dives coming your way.
It's such a pleasure to explore these kinds of connections, isn't it? Linking myth, engineering, culture. It just enriches how we see the world, I think. Always great sharing these insights with you.
Absolutely. Until our next discovery, everyone.